Welcome to this special edition podcast series, Surviving the Shitstorm, with me, Michael Tingser. In this episode, we have Ivan Brewer from Australia as guest. He's an expert to help SME food and beverage businesses to achieve sustainable profitability. We will be talking about how to survive and thrive the shitstorm as an operator, what preparation you can do here and now to ensure you're ready when business picks up again. Thanks to our partners HGEM, Tahola and Vita Mojo, who's making this possible. Tune in, grab pen and paper. There's some great out-of-the-box ideas and tips on how to survive and stay longer in business. Tune in and grab pen and paper. There's some great out-of-the-box ideas and tips that can help you survive now and in the future. Thank you very much for joining us today in this special edition podcast episode. There's no doubt today, on the 19th of March 2020, the world and our beloved hospitality and restaurant industry has gone, what I've said a couple of times, from the perfect storm to a shit storm during the coronavirus. And a lot of things is happening out there, lots of uncertainty, lots of fear. And I'm sitting here early morning in the UK, and on the other side of the world, I have a very good friend and restaurant expert, Ivan Brewer, on the line. And we have been talking a couple of times before that, but not about a subject as, so crazy and so unpredictable as the world is right now. And we are looking into a very difficult period. But first of all, welcome to the podcast, Ivan. And for people that don't know who you are, can you just give a quick overview, like your 30 seconds elevator pitch?
Lovely to talk to you again, Michael, as always. And it's been a couple of years now, I think, that we've been chatting from across the globe.
Yeah.
For myself, absolutely delighted to be able to share some time with you again. My background, really, in a nutshell, is focusing on how we can be as profitable as possible within the hospitality industry. So to relearn that genius that is in our genes as an industry, and to really start focusing on understanding the nuance, I think, is probably the way I like to describe it, that we're not a black and white industry. We are actually a very agile industry when we truly understand the nuance that we have available to us and how it is that we can utilize that to be as successful as possible, which is, of course, incredibly relevant in such dynamic times at the moment.
From an Australian point of view, what is going on in your part of the world when it comes to hospitality? What is the situation right now? Because in the UK, if you haven't shut down, you're down to only do delivery. We're talking about millions of jobs on the line the next couple of days. It's probably in its darkest hour, as I remember. I would say in a European level, not even a UK level. But how is the situation in Australia?
Incredibly dynamic at the moment. So we've it's only really been about a week or so where we've had just such really profound announcements from the government. So we've gone from not being able to have any sort of outdoor associations, so large groups of people of 500 or more. And just over the last couple of days, that's now changed where we can't have more than 100 people indoors by association. And we're looking at the social distancing, sort of new term, which is being thrown around so much. So again, we haven't closed down venues. We've certainly seen some crazy human behaviour, like hoarding toilet paper and taking out all of the shelves in supermarkets. Any processed food is not available, but plenty of fresh stuff. So very, very dynamic at the moment. So within hospitality, what that's forcing businesses to do is, one, it's giving them a bit of confusion as to around to how do we manage whether there's 100 people in a venue at once, especially around stand-up type and dynamic multi-entrance and exit type venues can be very difficult to monitor. But then the tables are being a good sort of 6 feet apart as well. So businesses are dramatically reducing their capacity and from a seating perspective. But there is largely overall, there's just this real significant confusion as to just what is going on. And of course, that confusion leads to people being very conservative in their behaviour.
what's going to happen short term? Because I guess you are like the UK. We are, if we are if society not, if people not have already decided they are in lockdown, I think it's we are so close to be in a lockdown situation as a country as you can be, which has a massive impact on hospitality. Everything has stopped, and nobody knows what's going on in principle. It's totally chaos out there and frustration. But how do you see with the Australian situation? Is that a similar situation they are facing within the next couple of weeks? You think that you're going to be there as well?
That's right. We've got a very interesting lag compared to other parts of the world. And there's been a bit of a narrative around the fact that we are tracking where Italy was 21 days ago. So we're very early on, the hundreds of cases sort of scenario, but it seems to be starting to ramp up. So that exponential increase that all parts of the world have seen. So we still have schools open. We talk constantly about, basically though, I think like sporting associations are acting of their own volition because, based on people's general concern, the public's concern. So I know my son's soccer and football in your part of the world has just been all suspended. The cricket season's been ended in advance. All the swimming lessons have been stopped. And of course, that just feeds into a real concern because that's not really coming from the government. That's just coming from the sporting associations. So from the hospitality perspective, it's becoming very focused on the delivery because I think there's been, in some areas, that it's quite significant reduction in the number of people that are coming in. But it feels like we're standing on a bit of a precipice that it's all about to go one way or the other. It'll all just resolve and be fine in a couple of weeks, or if we follow the rest of the world, then it's going to go the other way in the next couple of weeks. So it's a time for us, I think, in this part of the world to just get, to learn what other people are doing and get on the front foot, really start to get batten down the hedges and be positive and proactive instead of just putting your head in the sand and ignoring it.
Yeah, because I think it comes so fast. That's what we experienced. We talked before we went on the podcast there, where I said to you, it came so fast. It was I met a guy. I didn't meet him because we couldn't meet, but I had a conversation with a guy the other day, and he said it feels like a bit that I was standing in the middle of a square, and somebody came along and just pulled down my trousers. That was how fast it came. So within a week, you lost maybe 70% of your revenue. Some have lost more, some have lost all, and nobody can mitigate things like that. It's not possible to steer a business in any way and save it in that way. So, of course, you can see the consequences that's going to happen for many, many, many operators. And what do you think it's going to happen long term? Are we going to have a totally dismantled industry, or what's going to happen? Because or do we just don't know? We will have to see on the other side.
I think that Australia is pretty much everywhere else. And what if you look at Europe and the UK in particular and the US, I think we've had an industry that's been under a great deal of stress and strain for a number of years. So I think we've had market increases. So the number of businesses have increased from 14 to 42,000 in less than a decade. It's absolutely unheard of in our market, but the actual total market spend has only increased by 5%. So the revenue is already being really challenged. And according to the Australian Bureau of Statistics in 2016, 40% of businesses either made zero money or lost money. So we weren't in a great position leading into this sort of pressure test and crisis. So I think unfortunate reality of that is that a good number of businesses are most likely to close unless there's some sort of very grand support that will come from the government. I suspect that might be, if it does come a little bit too late, as has tended to be the trend. So I think the businesses that were already on the edge and under strain, it just, as you know, within this industry, it just doesn't take much. We probably have a slight advantage in the sense that we've just come out over peak summertime. So traditionally, where, as you know, that sort of peak trading really is geared to help you get through the winter until you get to your next peak trade. So there should be a little bit more resources and a little bit more money in the bank than we would typically have. So that could be a slight sort of positive from this part of the world. But I think every business really is just so dependent on that regular sort of expected revenue that when we drop off significantly, and we're not very good in hospitality and acting in real time. At best, we tend to do weekly P&Ls. We don't really respond quickly to understand what's going on in our businesses. So this is really a time to just shorten those decision loops and really start to act proactively and very, very quickly.
You mentioned governments a bit, and I think all over the world there has been, frustration with governments that hasn't moved fast enough, and you've seen some governments like France, Denmark, I think other Scandinavian banks as well, governments have actually been out proactively and say, here's packages straight off. 75% of every laid off employee will cover their salaries in a short term right now to manage the situation, because they have a hope that we will come back to normality and businesses will employ them again. But what do you think government, if you give like 3 advice, put on your advice hat to the government, what is the 3 thing they could do right now that will maybe not just hospitality but actually would support business and the economy in a better way?
Well, I think if we go on the worst case sort of scenario and we follow the mass isolation, self-isolations and those sorts of things, I think what do we have within the hospitality industry? So we have commercially licensed kitchens that have very good hygiene controls. We have staff that have got very good hygiene standards. And what are kitchens other than actual manufacturing facilities? That's what a kitchen at its heart is. So there's this enormous opportunity to utilize this resource to be able to produce food, whether it be for people that are stuck at home, whether it be for hospitals and for aged care facilities. I think for me, globally, there's this absolutely wonderful opportunity to utilize the resource that hospitality is, even if it meant that behind the scenes, different businesses on a rotating roster produced food to certain menus and then it goes and gets delivered. I think it would be a tremendous opportunity to be able to utilize that sort of resource.
Absolutely great idea. And I think it's maybe a great idea for operators out there, because I'm involved in a business myself where we're actually trying to find these opportunities, because that was one of the things we said. People will be at home. Some people are not able to get food because the infrastructure will break down at some point. There needs to be support system. There needs to be a plan A, B, and C. And as you say, that in a way, people should, maybe this is where you're just going to be grateful for having a meal right now at some point in all this, a hot meal delivered to your door in a way. So yeah, so I think you're spot on there. There's so much resource in hospitality and the people as well within that.
We have rigid supply chains with wonderful hygiene standards right the way through, and to be able to. So I think that for all of us, from the suppliers, people just need money to go through their businesses to allow the cogs to keep on turning. There isn't going to be price gouging. People will just be happy to, pay the costs so that things keep on going. So the suppliers can keep on supplying the restaurants as the restaurants keep on making the food, and then actually it would be an incredible resource to have good quality product circulating through the economy and just keeping people fed.
Other things you think that the government could get to take, but that was a great advice. It was not just supporting with money, but actually start an initiative where you actually set the wheels in motion. Is there other things you think the government could focus on and where they could actually help business out there?
I think some of the more successful economies and countries in the world have really been very aggressive and proactive in how it is that they, almost what you'd call a universal income, and getting money in people's hands. Where I think at the moment in the UK and here, where we have here in Australia, something like 25% of our workforce is casual, and of course, casual staff and work is permanent part-time staff that don't have very many hours. So there's a lot of people that don't have enough hours to work. Those hours are being rolled back at an absolute rate of knots. So the ability to get some money into the hands of these sorts of people in Australia, certainly the New Start, which has not increased in a generation, so that people that are under welfare can just have more money to spend and then spend it. So I think that the government can certainly do a lot in terms of. I think for all of us, we just had $750 million in either relief or actual money go to the airlines, and that just breaks people's hearts with the amount of good that could generate going into the community and then going into the economy. So I think that businesses, so the economy needs to be propped up at a rate of knots, and governments in a way just need to lose a little bit of ego and rather do too much than too little, because the ongoing impacts of too little is catastrophic.
Yeah. And I think it's the delay in the things, as you said before as well. It's a bit, maybe it's good, some of the things that are coming, but they're coming a bit too late, and it's a bit too difficult for small businesses and even bigger businesses to actually get the money in time to actually to rescue the business. And also, how do we actually make sure that the people out there that is having these frontline jobs are safe in a way the next 3 months in a way? How do you support that?
And then, unfortunately, there is no perfect information. So we can't wait until we get the right amount of information to guide the decisions that need to get made. And in the absence of perfect information, decisions are being made from ideological perspectives. So whether they're left or right on the political spectrum, surely we need to focus less about a lack of interference from the government and less about propping up it's about getting it out there and getting it done. We just need to get the work done. If it's called socialism, then so be it. We just need to get out there, not wait for the perfect storm of information, and just get acting is what I think is the most important thing.
I think it's a bit like the whole world has gone in startup mode. So it's like, learn, apply, test, unlearn, apply new things, and just that circle of startup where you just have to move extremely fast, not to actually get to where you need to be. And I think that's maybe the thinking that almost needs to go into governments as well, and accept that they can't manage everything in this situation. If you take it from an operator point of view, what were your top 3 advice from a short term to navigate this, because it is bad and people are trying, but what would, if you were standing out there running restaurant groups, which you have huge experience with, or teams, what would you do short term? What would your focus be to, keep the team safe, but also the business?
And I think that it really is an extension of what businesses should be focusing on in any case. So we tend to be very fixed in things like menus. We'd like to have large menus, and we tend to have items that don't sell particularly well. So for me, this is an opportunity to almost throw your existing menu out of the window and really focus on how it is that we go about making food that is super efficient. So whether the production can be made in bulk outside of service times, the food that can be produced very rapidly, because something that's really needs to be considered if we're operating within hospitality is that people will actually get sick. So we can't have, we need to be able to rotate it through rosters so that we have, we don't have people clashing and having spreading sickness throughout those businesses. So whether they are understaffed or having much smaller staff, but they're having shorter shifts throughout the day and swapping over, and then building a business that allows that sort of hyper productivity as well. So bulk food that can be produced, it can still stay within your brand and within the ethos of what you're trying to do, but think about it from a real efficiency perspective. And just, you can't be wasting resources. We need specials to be getting up on the menus because we cannot have wastage. We need to sell every item that we have on our stock, especially the perishable items, and considering what are the items that are going to be easier to get versus the items that are not. So I think really, really smart menu design, and that really is, in essence, a strategic play. That is what your menu is absolutely crucial. That also is something that can filter through to delivery, again, because we've got that. If we've got that uncapped capacity to produce food even at peak times, then the delivery commissions aren't hurting us quite so much.
And I think it's, again, it's probably different for different operators what to do. And I talked with somebody yesterday, and we in cooperation we decided, stop now, turn your business around to a delivery model. They never done delivery, but the innovation, and the next week they will turn that around, and hopefully they say they can keep going. And like I said to them as well, as we talked about before, maybe there's actually going to be opportunities not just to sell your food to consumers, but actually there will be government that need food as well because their capacity can't follow it. And they were doing quite healthy plant-based food. So that would be relevant in this situation for sick people as well, to have some really good plant-based food as well. So yeah.
Well, this is where we came from, right? I mean, the word restaurant has come from the French term for restorative, because we produced food that would help people restore people that were unwell. So it's quite ironic that we're all the way back to that, and to have that sort of food that's really servicing us, building our immunity and helping it, and perhaps even in a worst case scenario, you might not be having a lot of meals throughout a day, so meals that are hyper nutritious in their own right. But I think that something that people could be doing as well is that there's a lot of demand that's going into these supermarkets, and we know that restaurants have got very, very comprehensive supply chains and easy access, and also suppliers that are needing to sell food. Something that I didn't have done myself is to allow your staff to have access to your suppliers. So they want the work in any case. So that food and all those sorts of great ingredients and products can be sold to your staff and to their families and to your local community.
That's interesting. That's, again, a very interesting view I haven't even thought about. And also, I guess is there any way that, supply chains are under pressure? You said loo roll is gone, tin food is gone. Could actually these people be transferred, some of them, into work in that supply chain and doing some of these jobs? Because, again, hospitality people are, in my view as well, very well-trained people, and they are very hardworking. Because if you're not hardworking, you probably would not survive that industry for a long time. So again, is there actually a way where you can actually think that, because that supply chain is going to need help if in some kind of way, and there's not enough people in that supply chain when people start to get ill as well. So that's another way of turning around. Really, really great way of looking at it, Ivan. What do you think if you go now and say long term? Because yes, it's very dark and dire right now. But again, and what do you think the businesses that can steer through this and find solutions short term? What do they need to start thinking about long term? Because we talked about it before the podcast. This is a paradigm shift in the world. So how things work will change dramatically. Probably, and there'll be things we thought that worked one way will work a totally different way or not exist when we come out on the other side. What do you think that leaves the restaurant industry, and what should a leader think about now as they get through the crisis management period and start to have to do the restart phase? I would say it more.
I think, and just as a segue into that, something that I know you're very people focused in what you do and your philosophy, and that's just so important from the leadership perspective, isn't it? Because every staff member is going to be drawing from what they see in their managers and in their leaders. And if people can just be more positive, just calm down, just work methodically through what they can do, that just helps the mental health of the people that are working for them, that are around them. So it's so important just to have that focus longer term. I think that we can only have confidence that the government are going to do the right things at the right time, that as other countries throughout the world have done, that we've got, there are periods in which the mortgages aren't being repaid. The landlords are going to have to be, I would certainly be approaching them. I'm not waiting for them to approach me, but they have to be forgiving rent periods. If the whole economy effectively comes to a standstill, people aren't working and earning and aren't spending, we're going to have these forgivings of these expenses to allow us to come back on the other side. It is unlikely that every business is going to survive. And what that really means is that there's going to be huge opportunity on the other side. Human behavior being a funny thing that it is, I don't know whether people are going to slowly filter back into using hospitality. I'd like to think that it's going to be almost a stampede, that we're going to be okay, and then we stampede back. And then that becomes a really big opportunity for businesses to just focus on being fighting fit, that just to be super clear on what their vision is, be super focused on their execution, being hyper efficient, and just building a business that really can, stand up to any challenge.
Where, if you were an operator, where would you go for help and support right now, outside your own little world as an operator? Is there anywhere you would say you should do these three things?
I think that there's always a danger in the world that we live in, because the sheer volume of information is so large, and that more and more we're collecting in cohorts and groups where we might have a Facebook group that we belong to that we get our information from. So I think the most important thing is to get the best information possible. So don't just rely on what other operators might be saying, or what someone that you met down the street might be saying, or something that you read on the internet. This really can be, and it's something that I've been seeing here in Australia, an opportunity for industry associations to absolutely shine. So the Restaurant and Catering Association here has been incredibly proactive. So they've released template letters to landlords. They've had, released an interview with a leasing expert and going through the things that people could be doing. Those sorts of things are fundamentally valuable and important to do. So I think industry associations are incredible. So much misinformation and confusion around staff rights and the complexity of our award system here. So going directly to the likes of your Fair Work associations and government employment areas and departments, we must be making decisions based on the best possible information, because we know that there's an awful lot of information that might not be too robust that's on the internet. So let's go to the best possible places that we can. We just have to be, like what would be said in most podcasts that would cover this sorts of thing, is we're just going to focus on what our major expenses are and get those dried up and get those stopped, assuming that we will keep on filtering through. So if we go on the assumption that the industry will stay open and people will just be a little bit hesitant, or they might not be able to dine together, then I think we need to be pivoting, focusing heavily on our menu management, peeling it right back, being super efficient, and delivering good quality and healthy product, and then meet our customers. We need to be reacting to what it is that the community is going through. If they're stuck in homes, and send it to them.
So it's what you're saying as well is also trying to understand what problems can I solve in my community at the same time. So I'm trying to keep the business afloat, because
Absolutely.
again, that will come back when you're on the other side. How do you, in yourself and what all the things you do, Ivan, how do you keep yourself sane in all this? What is your top advice to keep, because it's easy to say to be resilient and focused and all that, but what is your tools to keep the focus and, keep the positivity and the way forward right now?
This is a very difficult time as a community, and particularly industries that are vulnerable and traditionally vulnerable, like hospitality. But this is just something that we've gone through. All of our ancestors have gone through things that have, world wars and incredible pandemics in the past. So we are, as people, both robust, and we're genius. We have incredible capabilities that are within us. So I think for me, I'm just incredibly grateful to have the family around me to be able to connect with such a wonderful person like yourself on the other side of the world. We live in an incredible time in the world. And I think this is really something to keep top of mind, that these are events that are happening, that we can trust in the governments and what's going on. We will get through this on the other side. There's absolutely zero doubt to me and we will just get to go again. And we really get to, almost in a way, reconnect to the things that are really important to us. And really, I guess you start to identify the things that really aren't that important to us as well. So we just focus on what does matter, and really, simplifying the amount of noise that's continually going through our heads, and just focus on what makes us happy and what makes a difference, and just look after each other. Something that, in that vein, I just would be desperate to see with our hospitality industry is that even if you can't charge for the food because you're having to throw it away, or you can't utilize it, there are the concerns in the community, the likes of homeless people and people that are really struggling. So making sure that all of that food and product is getting circulated through and getting to people that need it as well. And we've got lots of organisations that can do that, and just making sure we're connecting with those and just being human, helping people as much as possible, because profit really doesn't matter. We will all get through this, and we'll get to have another bite at the cherry.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. Yeah, this is a time for humanity and connection and help reaching out and help the I think it's called the rule of reciprocity as well. That if you give, you will get at some point, and this is more important than ever because we all in the same boat. As a colleague of me said yesterday, that's not there's no different for anyone. Maybe in different levels of pain, but we're all in the same pain, and we need to take each other out of that pain. And this is the time to come together, he said, because if we don't come together, could be the worst, event in a long time in history in the world, he said. So I hope I have the same hope as you that industry and people will come together now more than ever, because that's what we need in a way, and on all levels. So yeah. If people want to follow you, Ivan, and follow you on social media or whatever, where should they go to learn more about you and follow you and see? I guess you will have some perspectives in all this as we move forward, as you normally have on LinkedIn. I know you use that a lot.
That's right. That's really the primary sort of medium that I use. It's through my own sort of personal circumstance, I don't have a lot of time or ability to spread myself too thinly. So LinkedIn has been a wonderful resource to allow me to communicate with people within the industry. More and more being involved in, writing content for businesses, which I'll share again on the LinkedIn page, and, being involved in podcasts and those sorts of things. So I'm certainly, the name gets out there, but to find me would be to go on the LinkedIn. And then I think over the next sort of 12 months or so, really looking I'll be able to get the website up and running and all those little sort of more getting things organized so that I can get my name out there a little bit more and just help people, because that's the only thing that's important to me, is that just the hard-won knowledge that I've had, and I've had decades where very generous leaders have shared information and knowledge with me, and I just want to pass that on and help people as much as I can.
Thank you, Ivan, for coming on the podcast. I'm sending you, your family, power, love, and energy to navigate through the coming period. And I'm sure we're going to be talking more as we are now, both of us, maybe potentially going to be isolated in our homes a lot. So I think there's an opportunity to share even more experiences and knowledge as we go forward. So yeah, stay safe down under, Ivan.
And yourself as well. We both have young kids, so please, mate, stay safe in your part of the world. You'll be starting to have everything warm up a little bit. Hopefully, you'll have some brighter skies that might put some smiles on people's faces. And where I live in the tropics, it's always sunny. So just enjoy the sound of, enjoy the kids and the family around you and the beautiful world that we live in.
I will. Thank you very much, and take care.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you, Ivan, for your out-of-the-box thinking. Sure, a lot of people out there already starting implementing some of these great ideas. Remember, if you'd like more help, please reach out to Ivan on LinkedIn, Ivan Brewer. Please share this podcast so other industry people also can get this great insight and advice. If you would like more of this, please subscribe to one of our channels. More to come very soon. If you have not signed up to the newsletter, go to experience101.live and sign up today. Thanks to our partner HGEM, Tahola and Vita Mojo for supporting us getting this out to more movers, shakers and mavericks. Together we can overcome this. Thanks for listening, and be kind out there.
We need more help, call the whole town. Now let's try and get this thing off the ground. All in together, let's gather round. We're gonna try and get this thing off the ground.